Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Kokomlemle. Digital address GA09925539. Our top stories this hour. School reopens in October after the whole world was set back a few months and some learning were done online. So what happens to the academic year and the curriculum as schools reopen? We pursue some answers as we explore what President Akufo-Addo's announcement actually means. $150 to be borne by travelers into the country as the KOTOKA International Airport reopens after months of shutdown. Can you just pick up your bag and travel? We chat with an aviation analyst and director of port services on what travelers ought to do. Also coming up, police search for one of two women gone missing after they were attacked on allegations they were witches. We're live on the ground for the update on this disturbing story. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. Remember, we're on YouTube live and you can join us there as well. Your thoughts and opinions are welcome on 0540-109-009. My name is Gov't and this is The Pulse. Please be my guest. You're welcome. I'll take you through the details of those stories and more. The Association of Private Schools in Ghana has described as unfortunate and disappointing the government's decision to suspend academic activities until January 2021. This comes on the back of President Akufo-Addo's announcement on resumption of schools, which will see students in JHS2 and SHS2 returning to school in October. For those in kindergarten to JHS1, they go back to school in 2021 January. Listen to President Akufo-Addo on that announcement, just in case you missed it.
After consultation with the relevant stakeholders, for SHS2 and JHS2 students to return to school from 5th October to 14th December 2020 to complete their academic year. With junior high schools operating with class sizes of 30 and senior high schools with class sizes of 25, SHS2 and JHS2 students will be in school for 10 weeks to study and write their end-of-term examinations. SHS2 students in boarding houses are to return to their various dormitories on 5th October, whilst day students, respecting fully the COVID-19 protocols, will commute from home to their respective schools on the same date. Prior to reopening, all junior and senior high schools will be fumigated and disinfected. Just as was done in the case of final year university, JHS and JHS students, all JHS2 and SHS2 students, as well as all teaching and non-teaching staff, will be given reusable face masks. Each school will be provided with Veronica buckets, gallons of liquid soap, rolls of tissue paper, thermometer guns, and 200 milliliter containers of sanitizers. JHS2 students will be given one hot meal a day. Assemblies and sporting events remain banned, and the use by outsiders of school premises for other activities is still not allowed. We will continue to ensure that each school, which does not have its own sick bay, has been mapped to a health facility and care is provided to the sick by nurses assigned to them. The Ghana Education Service, after further consultations, has decided to postpone the remainder of the academic year for all nursery, kindergarten, primary, JHS1 and SHS1 students. The next academic year will resume in January 2021 with appropriate adjustments made to the curriculum to ensure that nothing is lost from the previous year. The relevant dispositions will also be made so that the presence at the same time in school of all streams of students can occur in safety.
So how do you understand this? How do parents understand this announcement? Some parents have actually been reacting to this. Listen.
if you allow these kids to go to school early, we don't know what will happen. The virus can escalate. It can spread quickly through the kids, though we have low rate of it going or maybe attacking the kids. But then I think we should not risk by asking the kids to go back to school this year. It's better they go in January. By that time, everything has been lowered. So I believe it's in order because the borders will surely be opened tomorrow. And when it's open, we do not know whether the virus will escalate because of the people that will be coming in. So we cannot risk our kids going back to the classrooms. What Nanado has done is perfect. The SS2 and the JSS2 kids will go back. That will be like a rehearsal, a dress rehearsal for us to see how it will be like.
They say some motive mo frank to fi no mo ko sa agenu okwa say okwa eden okwa hwe enti me de ya le na nkanka na akufado no nka se mo fa na fi enti sa agenu no eye
sani na na kan ye mpanimfo se sabi akokrabo fo se na tena fi maseduafo ani o kan ye because it's young mpanimfo no mpo.
So some people feel, and some people that we've been reacting with feel that it's a bit confusing what the president said. Others seem to simply wholeheartedly accept it, like you heard some of the parents say. But what does it really mean? And that's what we'll be trying to understand. Will students be automatically promoted? If so, what happens to those in private schools who may have completed the syllabi for the term, teaching and learning online? What about those who had no internet at all and who have not learned anything since the lockdown? So let's have a conversation, see if we can clear out that confusion, a little bit of it, perhaps in my own mind. I have President of the Association of Private Schools, Dr. Damasus Turosong, who is joining me. Doc, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. You are muted. You are muted. You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity given me.
Very well. We'll very soon have also joining us for this conversation Professor Anna Mohammed-Mensah. He's Executive Chair of Teacher Education in Sub-Saharan Africa and the Director of School and Community Science and Technology Studies at the University of Education, Winneba, Ghana. He was also part of those who actually drafted the current curricula, so it will be good to hear from him. I also have Executive Director for Institute of Education Studies, IFS, Peter Anti, for this chart. Peter, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Welcome.
Okay, so I'd like to understand what the announcement that President Kutor made means to you. I mean, how do you understand it? And I'll start with you both. Let me start with you, Dr. Damasus.
Well, thank you. There is still a little confusing, like you indicate. And I'm sure that the Education Ministry will come to operationalize it a little more. But my understanding of it is that come January, the students will go automatically to their next class. They will be promoted automatically to a higher level. Of course, there are issues to do with whether they have been able to imbibe what they were supposed to learn at their lower levels, who should progress them to the higher levels. Those issues do exist, but from my understanding of the announcement that was given yesterday, I think that they will be progressing to the next level come January. And
that for you means that there won't be any sort of assessment. Is that how it stands out to you?
That's the way it looks to me.
Okay.
I think there's been the misconception that majority of the students went through virtual learning. Which is a misconception because from our own analysis, it looks like about 20% of students, if not less, went through the virtual learning. So by virtue of whatever virtual learning processes are assumed to have taken place, they are based on that going to promote them to the next levels.
Interesting. Mr. Anti, let me come to you for your own understanding of what President Kutor said. Does this sync with what Dr. Damascus has just said?
Thank you very much. For us, we have been expectant of this particular move because we have said from day one that it was practically impossible to promote a wholesale reopening of schools. Looking at what is happening across the globe, it was practically not going to be possible because it would have had a lot of logistical challenges on the government. So we were expecting a partial reopening, the kind of reopening whereby a cohort of students go on campus, do the academic work, they complete, and then they leave, then another group goes. That is what we were anticipating. Of course, we were not expecting a total suspension of the academic calendar for a particular group of students till January, but in the wisdom of the managers of our education and upon consultation, I think that is what they want to do. What that practically means is that the students in JHS 1 to KG, as the president indicated, might have to, when school reopens, go through maybe a short period of academic activity that would lead them to obtain certain kind of assessment, and then that can lead to their progression to the next level. I think that is what is going to happen. For automatic promotion, I think that can happen to those at the lower primary level because there the academic work is not that rigorous, and they can still pick up as they proceed with their academic life. So for automatic promotion, I think that would be something that can be applied to those at the lower primary. But for the upper primary, JHS 1 and then the SHS 1, I'm thinking that there will be a special dispensation for them to go through some periods of academic work, and then they would be promoted based on their performance during that particular period. Now,
that's your own understanding of how this system is supposed to work. So like Dr. Damascus said, we may have to get the Education Ministry to break this down a little bit for us, explain it, like he said, operationalize it for us. But Doc, I'm coming back to you. You are private school, administrators, teachers. You deal with private school staff. For some of the schools, most is not the right way to put it. For some of the schools, there has been some level of online engagement, studying activities, but not all. Not all the schools have gone through this process. How problematic is this announcement for people who operate within the private sector like you?
Yes. Is very problematic in the sense that, like I indicated, we have less than 20% of our students having gone through any form of online learning.
Okay.
So for kids to be at home for 10 months, remember by January, it would have been 10 months of academic inactivity. The students would have gone rusty in this period. The students would have virtually had some memory lapse. For them to be expected to do some remedial work that will lead to promotion or go into wholesale promotion is going to be very problematic for us. Besides, we had, based on our own analysis, advocated that schools could reopen either this September or October. And we have tabled a lot of proposals to government so that the reopening could take place, and yet we would be in a position to manage the school children such that they will not contract the virus. Indeed, there are some people who are of the view that the school environment could even be safer for our kids than the home environment. Because as they sit at home, it's difficult to tell what they are engaged in when their parents go to work. It's difficult to tell whether they are not going into market centers, some are not going into hawking, going out with their friends and playing football. And in all of this, who is monitoring them to observe the protocols, the COVID-19 protocols? Within the school environment, we are in a position to regulate our school children, ensure that they social distance, ensure that they wash their hands regularly with soap and go through use hand sanitizers and all of that. We are in a position to do that. In the home situation, there are many kids. And when we talk about this, let's not always look at children in the cities who can remain indoors all the time. We are aware that the vast majority of our children are in the rural areas. So no one should tell us that there's been some effective virtual learning or that postponing reopening until January is going to help us curtail the spread of this virus. I don't think those are tenable arguments.
So at this point, the president has spoken. We were expecting the committee that was tasked to work on this particular issue to come out with a response by middle or getting to the end of September.
21st September.
Exactly. And for you, hearing the president make this announcement ahead of that work by the committee to be made known to all of us, what do you make of that?
It's very shocking, to be honest with you. Very shocking because this committee was to present its report on 21st September. As private schools, we have a rep on the committee that is working on the reopening. And we had been asked to table proposals to the committee on 3rd September. While we were in the process of coming out with our proposals, the president comes and makes this announcement. And even more shocking to us is the fact that we are told from the president's delivery that stakeholders, relevant stakeholders were consulted in arriving, GES consulted relevant stakeholders in coming out of this decision. I don't know which relevant stakeholders they are. If private schools were not consulted or were still in the process of being consulted, I don't know who came out with all these timelines and schedules that were put out for us. It's really been disturbing to us.
To talk to you more about your operations and how it's been affected. I mean, for government teachers, we know that they're getting paid, so the situation with you is peculiar, and I'll come back for us to have a conversation on that. But we've been trying to get information from the GES for them to respond to some of the concerns we're raising in terms of the confusion that's created here. We're not able to get someone to speak, but we're hearing that a decision to automatically promote students has yet to be taken. So I just wanted to chip that in for you to just note it down. Ms. Auntie, let me come to you on your own thoughts. For the private schools, they're saying that this is very problematic. They are shocked, that's how he describes it, shocked that the work of the committee is not yet over, but President Kutor makes this announcement. What do you make of it?
Yes, it's unfortunate that the private schools have to go through this. And when we, as an institute, when we talk of the private schools, we are more concerned about the teachers and the other non-teaching staff that are affected by this. We were expecting that the private schools would be able to, the leadership of the private schools would be able to push harder for certain arrangements to be made to enable their employees, the teachers and non-teaching staff, have certain packages to cushion them. But unfortunately, they've not been able to achieve that. I think at this stage, the president has spoken. I don't think that we would be going back on, or he will be going back on this decision. So the way forward is what we are thinking, that the private school teachers should quickly come together and present a proposal to the government and appeal to them that there should be a certain package for them from now till maybe to January, because it is going to be very difficult for them to cope financially. Imagine a family that the father and the mother are all teaching in various private schools, which have to be closed down for this number of period of time. So we are thinking that the talk now should be more of appealing to the government to use the various platforms like the LEAP, the MASLOG, and all those things to find ways and means to cushion these teachers that have been affected through this period. We are also thinking that the corporate Ghana can also take upon itself to assist some of these private school teachers during this particular period of time, because they really need that kind of assistance. And we think that if we are able to make a forceful case to corporate Ghana, to the government, they will be able to collate their information and find ways and means to assist them financially for the period left for things to return to normalcy. But I have to make this point. You see, the decision that we are supposed to suspend classes, I mean, for those kind of category of students that have been mentioned to January, means that the government would have to now redesign their virtual learning platforms. Doc was talking about 20%. That is very true. But then something can be done about it. You see, we are not doing this in isolation. So we always have to learn from what other countries are doing, what have been done already, and other things. So for those in marginalized communities and those in deprived areas, instead of using the virtual teaching whereby maybe they don't have access to their television, the government can now resort to community communication systems and the radio stations, so that they can still reach a vast majority of our students. We know that it is highly impossible to get 100% of the students to enable them to continue their education. But if you're able to, one, increase the number of TV stations that telecast the virtual teaching, two, use radio stations, and three, use the community communication system, we'll be able to reach a vast majority of these students who will need to go through some kind of academic work and then wait till the things return to normalcy.
Let me come back to you, Dr. Turosong. He's making a suggestion that you write to government and, put in some sort of appeal to get government to come to your aid. Is that something you're considering?
It's not just something we are considering. It's something we did as far back as 22nd April of this year. The moment this happened, we foresaw what was going to happen. We foresaw the long closure. And we wrote a petition to His Excellency the President. We only got a response of some sort around 10th August of this year, where we referred to the Finance Ministry who were asking us to provide some information for them. So this is something we've been pushing for quite a while. And our teachers have actually, our workers, I must say, have actually been very patient. They've been patient, and we have played a major role in keeping the lid on their explosion, because a number of them are getting very worried and getting agitated. And I'm sure you would have seen news flying around that a number of them intend either demonstrating or boycotting elections and all manner of things. We have reached a point where we are saying that we can no longer control whatever our teachers do. And indeed, we will have to support any legitimate action our teachers take in order to get government to listen to them. It is not going to be the first of its kind to have a government come to the aid of private sector workers. Indeed, in this COVID era, we know of some jurisdictions where government is paying a certain amount of money to all private sector workers who are unemployed. In the UK, at some point, 85% of their salaries were being paid to them. We are not even asking that government should pay them full salaries. We are asking that at least some mitigation measures be taken to alleviate their plight. And they deserve it.
And you're saying that since you put in the request back in, was it April you said, you have not heard
April 22nd.
Yes. What exactly have you heard in terms of response up until now?
Yeah, like I indicated, the Finance Ministry asked us for some data to be provided.
Have you provided?
Was around 10th. This was around 10th.
Okay.
And much of the data is quite detailed, and we are galvanizing around the entire country to collect this data and provide.
In that case, there is something being done, which means that you're still collating your data to be able to assess whatever support government can give you. So it's work in progress. Is that correct?
Well, we might say it's work in progress. It's just the time lapse between April and August before you get any response at all, which is the problem. And no one knows when the data is eventually provided, how much longer it might take before some relief comes.
Okay.
Maybe
I don't know if I can come in.
Yes, I'll let you come in. I just want him to say something for me, Mr. Ante. Just hang on for me a second. Dr. Turotong, I want you to paint for me a picture, not just for me, for anybody who is watching, and perhaps for those at the Finance Ministry who are waiting for your information to act. Give us a picture of how this is actually affecting people. Teachers, they're agitated, you've said that, but there are several schools, there are big schools, but there are also several small schools, several small private schools that are serving communities across the country. Give us a typical picture of these schools in remote areas, private schools in remote areas taking, say, 100, 200 cities, for example, for a month. How is this affecting them?
Any school that is taking 100, 200 Ghana cedis as I mean, I don't know whether you are saying as fees per month or the teachers taking the 100, 200 Ghana cedis.
Fees.
Yeah. Any such school will not be described in our context as a deprived school at all. I am telling you that we have what we call a vast number of schools known as low-cost private schools. These schools, some take as little as 30 Ghana cedis a term from their children, from the school children. And with the 30 Ghana taken from each child, the proprietor is supposed to provide infrastructure. In some cases, is supposed to provide feeding, some allowances for its workers, and run their entire operations. And you have teachers in some of these schools taking as little as 150 Ghana cedis per month as their allowances. And this is not coming from me, this is coming from USAID. They did a major research into low-cost private schools and came out with this data.
Aye.
So for such schools where a teacher was living on 150 Ghana cedis per month, a teacher who has a family and does no other economic activity, you can imagine what they will be going through, particularly in this era of COVID, when the cost of living has gone up dramatically for them. On a daily basis, we have many teachers who are inundating us of calls. And sometimes when they call, they are virtually crying. And we are at a point where we as proprietors are having to dip our hands in our pockets, whatever little money you get. You look out for the most needy among your workers and try to support them, to see them through. So in actual fact, we have, I'm sure some of you would have even seen social media messages of private school teachers who are crying like little children because of the state in which they are. So the situation is more dire than many people think. And that's why I think that something ought to be done quickly before there's an explosion of some sort.
Okay. Mr. Ante, you wanted to come in there, and I believe it was on the back of this same topic.
Yes, what I wanted to say was that, Doc, we rightly remember that you sent that petition in April. But during that time, you know that there was a lot of uncertainties surrounding COVID, and we didn't know whether schools would be reopened or schools would be closed forever. So I think that at this time that there's a lot, we are sure, we know that we are not going back to school, and there's pressure on the private schools. I think this is the time that you might have to push further forcefully so that everybody in the country understand the plight of the private school teacher, And we think that if you are able to maybe satisfy some of the things that have been asked by the Ministry of Finance, you should be able to get something out of it for your teachers as early as possible.
Okay.
We this afternoon have released a statement calling on government to as early as possible attend to the teachers in these private schools, because we feel for them. I have friends who teach in private schools who are going through serious financial difficulties, and I can really attest to that. So it is just a decision that we have to take, and the leadership of the private schools would have to force and push this for their teachers.
Okay. I'll take your final thoughts on this. I was hoping that we'll get Professor Anamwa Mensah to join us. We had him booked for this conversation, so we can understand, what issues, what's going to happen with the curriculum. Now that as you say, the academic calendar, this particular one has been suspended, we're going back to school. This automatic promotion. I know, Mr. Anti, that you've given us your thoughts about it. It is still not the certain position by government. We've tried to get something from the GES. We have not had it. So it still looks like there's still a little bit of confusion lingering there. This is a subject we'll be talking about throughout the week. And hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have some, certain answers. I'll take your final words before we go. I'll start with you, Mr. Anti. Your final words, if you can make it very brief for me, I'll be grateful.
So one, we should not experience what we experienced with the reopening of the schools for the final year students. Provision of PPEs, linking schools to health facilities, all those things that the president mentioned should be operationalized. We don't want to have the challenges that we had with the initial reopening of schools. Two, the virtual learning system should be made more operational and more useful at this time. And then three, of course, the government, as a matter of urgency, should attend to the private school teachers. It's something that they need to do.
All right. Doc, your final words.
Yes. I think that is possible for us to still have a conversation around bringing back reopening, pushing reopening forward a bit to, say, October for all other levels. At our level, we are ready to support government in having schools reopen. Some of the burden that government is going to bear by way of provision of PPEs to the schools, we are ready to enter into the conversation of supporting to provide some of these. But to have our children sit at home for 10 months will be very disastrous to our educational system, and we don't think that's the way to go.
Okay, so you are saying, if I got you clear, that the reopening in October should not be limited to only JHS2 and SHS2, should be extended to all other levels.
Absolutely. All other levels should be able to reopen in October, I believe.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this conversation. There are still a bit of uncertainty, a bit of clarity, needed to understand exactly what is going to happen. But we do know that the committee is still at work. President of the Association of Private Schools, Dr. Damasus Turosong, is who you heard there. Also, Executive Director for the Institute of Education Studies, AFES, Peter Anti. They joined me in this conversation. We're able to have Professor Anamwa Mensah to help us. He designed part of those who designed the curriculum, so he would have helped us understand what exactly is going to happen to the curriculum. But as you've heard them say, we need the education service to operationalize what President Akufo-Addo said, give it a bit of clarity. And for the private schools, they think that this is more like an automated promotion of people in JHS1, etc., as well as they believe there is a misconception as well that virtual education has gone on for so many people. They say only 20% of students got to have that. 10 months of inactivity for students, they think is not enough to promote them into the next level. And they want the school reopening to be in October, to be across all levels, not limited to JHS2 and SHS2. And they think that it is shocking that President Akufo-Addo speaks before the committee putting together some work on reopening schools finished their work. This is still The Pulse with me, GovT and Apia. I'd love to hear from you. Send me a WhatsApp message on the number I put out there earlier. Are you confused, or is it very clear to you what is going to happen between now, October, and January 2021? I'll be right back. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. The Ghana Scholarship Secretariat has busted 12 men for defrauding applicants. The suspects are alleged to be part of a syndicate who forge letters, signatures and act as middlemen in the name of Secretariat, scamming applicants to the tune of 60,000 cedis. Registrar Kinsley Ajuman tells JoyNews they were rounded up on different beats from June last year till date and have been handed over to the police for investigations.
The nature of the offences vary. Some has a very, very, very intense consequences. For instance, if you forge the signature of the registrar of scholarships, forge the Secretariat's letterheads, and use them as award letters to secure visas and embark on a journey. And we have others who portray themselves as middlemen. So these are basically the nature of the offences that have come so far and are before the police. If you go to Ministry's police station, we have suspects there. If you go to WAEC, we are very close to WAEC. So depending on the simulation exercise that we embark on, as soon as we round them up, we send them to the WAEC. And we also took others to the Cantonment police station. The modus operandi vary, but the bottom line is that from their statements, you could infer that it's a cartel. That's one. Then secondly, they really had the intention to commit such things.
In a related development, 3 students studying at the Reading University have had their scholarships withdrawn and they have been repatriated from the United Kingdom after authorities realized that they had faked their scholarships. Once again, Registrar for the Secretariat, Mr. Ajumani, gives details.
Those who got repatriated from the UK, the nature of the thing was they cloned the signature, my signature, and letterhead. Unfortunately, the UK VI didn't verify, so they made their way to the UK. And people made their way to the UK as students? As students. So they made their way to the UK as students, and then called on our office in London. We have an office in London that is responsible for students' activities. Once you get to the UK, you are required to go through a registration process with the High Commission, the education section of the High Commission, ably headed by one Efuajesiwa Gezi. So they completed our forms online, but there was a verification from here. Usually we exchange data to see if everybody that has enrolled on really had letters from here. So we picked the signal that they didn't, those letters that they tendered into the Ghana High Commission in the UK didn't come from here. So it's okay, let's play a simulation something. Go ahead and pay a first quota stipend to them to see, for us to test to see if they are really real people. So we rounded them up and we told their schools, their respective schools. I think there was one in University of Reading, and there were others, and I think Westminster also. There are about 3 of them. So we informed the school that the award was fraudulently procured and that the security services in Ghana are investigating. So they told them to deregister. In the UK, if you are asked to deregister, what it means is that you've been asked to withdraw from the schools.
Away from that, the National Disinfection Team is assuring passengers of the KOTOKA International Airport of a highly safe environment as the facility reopens tomorrow for international arrivals. Chief Operating Officer, Environment and Sanitation Division of Zoomlion Ghana, Florence Labi, said the activity will now be carried out on a quarterly basis. JoyNews' PSC Nanaya Safo was at the Terminal 3 of the airport. He serves you with more in the following excerpt.
Reporting from the only international airport in Ghana, the KOTOKA International Airport, which will soon reopen once again to international traffic from Tuesday, the 1st of September 2020. Behind me, as you can see, large activity by workers of the Zoomlion Ghana Company Limited disinfecting the terminal, the only one here that is open to international travel. Lots of this has been going on for the past hour or so. If we move forward to my right also, you can see more men with their chemical supplies ready to disinfect the entire place. We are going to speak to some of the heads here as they work on these particular disinfection exercise. Many of the counters, that's the passport check counters, have been heavily disinfected against a surge in the COVID-19. We're going to speak to some of them and they'll give us clarity on the process ongoing here. Good morning, lady and gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, so please tell us your name and your position here.
My name is Florence Labi. I'm the CEO for the Environment and Sanitation Group within the JoyNews Group, made up of Zoom Lion and all the others, about 30 other companies.
Okay, and ma'am, we can already see, our viewers can see in the visuals what's happening here. But if you mind giving us an overview of how really it's going on down.
Yeah, what is going on there? Since the last disinfection, we have beefed up our capacity in terms of equipment we want to use for this disinfection. We have brought in 10 more boom atomizers. We have brought in handheld atomizers, more solo machines, and have amended or augmented the chemical we are using. Although we are using the same chlorine, this time we are using one called viral oxy, which brings down corrosion and is less combustible. And in terms of how the whole work is going, I will hand over to my technical man to take over.
Indeed, sir. So you have been referred to as the technical man. If you mind telling us your name and position here.
My name is Reverend Ebenezer Kwame Ade, General Manager, Vector Control Services of Zoom Lion. So, as my boss was saying, we are being so technical. The disinfectant that we are using over here, as at now, is a disinfectant that have a residual effect. What I mean by residual effect means when we apply, it takes 10 to 30 days for it to stay in here, so that within that period, any virus or any bacteria that get to any of the polished surfaces will be deactivated, and therefore they cannot do any transmission. So it is a different on its own. But with the other area, like the apron and the other services area, we'll be using, because we needed using the chlorine, which is also doing the work effectively over there. So we have come in to do a professional work. You saw that we were using wipe and other things in doing. This is a gentle polish area, because we want to finish it up so that anybody who is watching us should feel free that we have disinfected with effective disinfectant, which is going to work for long. So nobody should entertain fear. They should come and do their normal work.
Well, I don't know much about the science here, but from my discerning, or at least the little I understand, it seems these chemicals are quite potent, they're quite strong. How friendly are they to humans? You're going to have a lot of people coming here from tomorrow onwards.
Yeah, the chemical is friendly. It is not a chemical which is dangerous at all. It is friendly chemical. As you see, it doesn't corrode. It is not combustible. It means that it cannot catch fire. It has a residual effect, and also it's a combination of 4 active ingredients which have been put together to form this disinfectant.
So it's not going to have any effects on the human beings?
At all. It has no threat on any human. It has no threat on any machine. So it is friendly. I can assure you. It is friendly. It has no effect to any other person or any other machine. So we are using the disinfectant which the Ghana airport has classified to be safe. We have given them all the material safety and data sheet. Then they've gone through and they have seen that it is no harm. It is not harmful to any of their facility.
So I guess from your point of view, we are ready to be reopened tomorrow.
We are 100% ready, 100% ready, as President announced. So from tomorrow, we don't have their schedule, but I know from tomorrow, everything can take place.
Okay. Let me come back to you a bit, Madam. How often, I mean, this has been done for quite a while now, during the time that the airport has been officially closed. Now that it's going to be reopened, and with these chemicals and the activity, how often are we going to see more of such disinfection exercises?
It is going to be done quarterly, on quarterly basis. But it will also depend on the schedule of the authorities of the airport. But as recommended by WHO, this has to be continuous. And so we would always be ready to be doing this until the end of the year, or even until this COVID gets away from us. My final word to all of us watch, all of the people watching, is that this place is safe. Anyone entertaining fears should just take off that fear and then come boldly and then pursue their travels, because the whole airport is now safe and COVID virus free.
Those are executives of the Zoomlion company working to ensure that this place is one, hygienic, 2, safe, and 3, open for all our passengers who may be coming in, God willing, tomorrow. As you can see, it's quite deserted for now. We are expecting that the situation tomorrow will be different. So if you are watching from Europe, or you are watching from any other continent out there, the Zoomlion has officially declared the place open, just like the president did. They are doing a lot of hard work to disinfect these places, and as you can tell, there is also information on display for those of you who may be coming onto the shores of Ghana on protection from coronavirus. Remember to arrive here with 1, your face mask, 2, negative lab test from an accredited lab facility in your country, and 3, to also abide by whatever protocols that the Ministry of Health, ladies and gentlemen and ladies on the ground, do well to tell you.
PSA Nanaya Osafo there from the airport. So what are these protocols? The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaje, says the East Municipal Hospital will be involved in treating passengers that turn out to be positive after the COVID test. Listen.
For arriving passengers, as has been mentioned, you need to come in with a negative PCR test taken at least at most 72 hours before you travel into the country. Ghanaians who travel for a meeting that returns in less than a week or within a week will be exempted from having to come in with a negative PCR test, and that's very important for people to know. There's also a digitized health declaration form that people can fill. You can even complete that before you arrive. That will tell us whether your risk level, are you sick, have you had any situation, where have you traveled to, so that allow the Port Health to be able to properly assess the risk that you are carrying in addition to your negative PCR test. The mandatory COVID-19 test on arrival, as been mentioned, will be done. And by the time you go through and get down to the Port Health before you go to immigration, your results will be there for them to be able to assess you to allow him in. I'll get to when you are positive later. There are exemptions to the mandatory test. Children under 5 will not be tested because the risk is low and all the inconvenience that goes with it. Air crew will also not be subjected to the mandatory testing at the airport here, but they will have to follow their own protocols as far as the airline testing is concerned. For our departing passengers, as usual, the mandatory face masks should be observed. Compliance with the destination rules will come. So if there's a country that also requires a PCR test before you arrive, all that will be checked before you leave. And then all your temperatures, etc. In addition to the other things that the Port Health checks, vaccination protocols will all be checked through. Transit passengers who do not require to enter the country will not be subject to the mandatory test at the airport here, unless they are coming and entering Ghana before they leave. So basically, those are the things. But for the person who gets down there and is positive, the Port Health will now take over. They will walk you through, assist you through immigration so that to prevent any further contamination. There's a holding room that will be sent to, and then your bags will be put up. You'll be sent into, all of them will be sent to the East Hospital for triaging, after which the necessary protocols, whether it's treatment, isolation, etc., will be instituted for all of them. So basically, these are the broad protocols in addition to all that has been mentioned at the.
So these are the broad protocols. What else must you know as a traveler? I mean, I know most of us are itching to travel. What should you know? Can you just pick up your bag and travel? We're hoping to get the Immigration Service join us in this conversation, but I have here in the studio Wanda Victor Kutor. He's an immigration analyst. He'll help us see the other things that you ought to do, not just about COVID, but the things you need to know. Mr. Kutor, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So the question is, what happens? Can you just pick up your bag and travel?
No.
Okay, why not?
Yeah, just like Ghana has put in some restrictions and rules as to those coming in the same way other countries have their own requirements. So, for example, I mean, this specifically was missing in the president's address yesterday. The impression out there is once KOTOKA International Airport is open, then you can just travel. That is not the case. For example, Canada has restricted those coming to their country to essentials, and they define essentials as non-discretionary and non-optional trips, meaning that you cannot travel to Canada now for tourism.
Okay.
So even if you have a valid Canadian visa, you cannot travel to Canada. So these are some of the things that we need to look at as Ghanaians. The US also has put restriction on H1B and H2B visa categories. They've also put restriction on J1 visa holders. So even if you have J1 visa now, you cannot travel to the US. You need to report to the consulates in Ghana to seek approval before you can travel. However, if you are on F1 visa already, you can travel for studies. Now, if you are now applying for the F1 visa is for students. If you are now applying for the F1 visa, then you might be exempted under the national waivers category to be granted visa. Not only the F1, and then they also have the A1, A2, that's for government officials. Any other visa category, you need to seek permission from the consulate. Thank you.
Before you'll be able to travel.
Yes.
So from your perspective as an immigration analyst, as someone who watches this space, what should an organization like the Ghana Immigration Service be telling Ghanaians? What information should we as Ghanaians expect from the Immigration Service?
Yes, thank you very much. We need to have a travel directorate at the KOTOKA International Airport.
Travel directorate?
Yes.
What exactly would they be doing?
Thank you. Just like UK, US, now, anybody leaving Ghana, they need to check your destination and check the applicable law in that country.
But isn't that as an individual responsibility? Should the Immigration Service do that for people?
But we owe the people of Ghana some duties. Now, if you have a Canadian visa, you may think that, okay, you can travel to Canada. When you get there, you'll be brought back. And these have ramifications to the economy of this country.
Okay.
So just having a travel guidance at the airport shouldn't cost as much. I mean, let's raise the bar in this country.
So you're expecting that the Ghana Immigration Service should create a travel, what you're calling a travel directory that can advise people who get to the airport on which countries, for example, they can travel to?
Not necessarily. The laws applicable to the country you want to go to. So, for example, those coming to Ghana, we know the requirement. You need to have the PCR test that has been done within 72 hours. When you arrive in Ghana, you have the antigen test and stuff. But in Canada, they are not expecting that. They expect you to have a mandatory quarantine plan.
Okay.
So when you get to Canada, they're going to isolate you, and you have to tell them where you will be and all that. And all those things, you're going to bear the cost. So every country has its rules. So before you leave Ghana, let us know where you are going to. We check the applicable rules over there, and then we can take it up from there.
I see. And for those who want to travel, I mean, there are countries whose borders are still closed at the moment. Is there a way to know which country is open? I mean, and which country is not? Is there anything within the sector that helps people directly give them ideas as to which country is closed and which country is open?
Yes, so it brings us back to the travel directory that I'm talking about. At this stage, the discussion will no longer be about whether we should have which country have open or not. That will not be the discussion. It will be about the category of visa you are traveling with. So a country may have its border open. It does not mean you are being expected.
Okay.
So depending on the category of visa. So if you're a Ghanaian, for example, and you want to go to the US with a J1 visa, you cannot enter the US.
What's a J1 visa?
It's also like student, but it's an internship, internship kind of 3 months short time.
Okay.
Unlike the F1, that's for the entire period.
Okay.
So country by country has applicable. So you may hear online, oh, this country has opened its borders. It does not mean you can travel. And that is my worry. Ghana has opened its borders, but it appears it's wholesome. Anybody at all can just come in. I thought we would have limited it to essentials. So if you're coming to Ghana and it's not for business, and it's not for work or to visit immediate family, you should be prevented. Our beaches are closed.
Okay.
So why should we expect tourists at this moment when we are trying to battle COVID-19? So let's see if government can come clearer, so that although we have opened our borders, so that we can restrict it to some categories of persons. Thank you.
Okay. So the point you're making is that we've opened our borders, but then we've opened it up to anybody at any time.
Yes.
And that it shouldn't be. It should have been restricted to essential travels.
Yes.
Did you not get a sense in what President Kutor said yesterday that there will be some level of restrictions, because they're saying that you will be tested. If you have done, you should have done a test before you come in, and then they'll do a
antigen test?
No.
When you get here?
Well, I tend to mix it up, and I won't put myself there in the first place. But then there are so many restrictions. You don't just walk in. You will be tested first. You have to be tested first of all. You come in, there will be another test done here, etc. Isn't that enough?
It's not enough. You see, these things are questions of fact and question of law. When you say that you've opened your border to everyone and that they just have to meet some criteria, it means that you've allowed everyone. They only have to meet the criteria. So, for example, if you are coming to Ghana now, you need to have your PCR test done for 72 hours. 72 hours. When you arrive in Ghana, 5 years and above, you are expected to do the antigen test. If you test negative, you'll be allowed to go free. Even if you turn positive, you will still be in Ghana, except that you will be isolated for a period of 14 days and all that. So just allowing everybody into the country, I mean, I think the government should take a second look at it, so that we restrict it to essentials. We make it clear to all the airlines that when you are coming to Ghana, we have to know your reason. It's good that government have tried to digitize all this information. So let us know the reason why you are coming. It should not, Ghana, there's no contact spots. Nightclub, beaches have been closed. So why do you open the border to just everyone coming to the country?
Okay. So let's take a look at some of the countries that are maybe, open. But like he's saying, just because the country is open doesn't necessarily mean you can just travel. So Nigeria will resume international flights from September, of course, which is tomorrow. But they are starting September 5th. So essentially this week. That's according to the head of aviation regulatory body. He said this on Thursday, marking a week-long delay to the resumption that they had announced previously. So that's starting from 5th of September. Nigeria is open. You can fly into Nigeria, but of course, according to the subject to the laws that prevail there on how you can travel in these times. So Singapore, September 1. So tomorrow. Essentially, Singapore will ease the restrictions. Singapore will allow general travel to and from New Zealand and Brunei Dar es Salaam as the city-state eases border control measures to take into account. Now, countries where the virus situation is under control, that's Bloomberg. They're sourcing that story to Bloomberg. So Singapore is also opening. Obviously, Ghana, we're opening tomorrow. And I come to you, Mr. Kutor, once again. You see what's happening in Singapore. Yeah. They are also opening generally. I mean, it's a general reopening. Of course, they will be testing and checking if people have it, but it's also a general opening. Isn't it better for the economy after several months?
You see, I'm happy that anytime the president tries to address the people of Ghana, the president will tell us that there's no one straight approach. Now, let's look at the history. How did coronavirus became parcel of the Ghanaian community? Coronavirus was imported into this country. So we may end up going back to square one if we allow people to just come into the country.
Okay.
My point is that let's limit the number. You from tomorrow, you will see. By next week, the whole of the airport will be full. And another challenge is that we are saying that people should come with PCR tests. But when they get here, we are going to have antigen tests for them. You know that there's a bit of difference.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, if someone contracts the COVID-19 on board and gets here, the antigen test may not be efficient as compared to the PCR test.
I see.
So the person may test negative at the airport, but in the next 2 days may be positive.
I see.
If we have decided to close the land, the harbors and stuff, then let's have the PCR test at the airport as well. Especially when we are requesting for PCR tests before they come in. Why do we do antigen tests when they are here? Is it so expensive that we cannot afford as a country? And if you are not ready, why do we have to open the border to just everyone?
But individuals coming in will have to know that they will pay. They're paying about $150 to do this.
Yes, it is not a matter of whether they can pay or not. It's about the facility. We don't have the PCR test at the airport. What we have is we are going to have an antigen test. So let's put in the PCR machine and charge those coming in.
I see.
Yes.
Well, let's take a look at other countries. Which other countries are reopening? September 1, Japan and Singapore, they're aiming to open to business travel. So it's only for business. Australia is set to open to international students and other visa holders. Other visa holders will have to wait, but they're opening to international students. Of course, the semester is starting, a new academic year is starting, and so for Australia, if you're a student, they're opening up. Japan and Singapore, they're looking to open to business people who have business to do there. Singapore Airlines, coming up again, also hoping to reopen. Cuba, August 30, end of, that was yesterday. So Cuba was to allow tourism in late August. Havana is out of limits, so Havana essentially is not part of the places you can travel to, but Cuba is generally opening up. Saudi Arabia, Saudi land borders are open for families of citizens. So if you are a family member to the citizens there, then you are allowed to go into Saudi Arabia. Angola is reopening its borders. They have 21st of August, they reopened, and it is open to visitors generally. So they're doing what Ghana is doing as well. Indonesia, South Korea, they are reopening their borders. They've reopened in August 17. It's agreed with South Korea travel corridor arrangement for essential business trips between the two countries. So so that's the point you were making there, that countries ought to target these reopenings. They ought to reopen to people who actually have some sort of business
essential
non-discretionary
trips.
But it's not bad for us to open it generally if we're doing the test. I get the responses that you have for the general, but it looks like some other countries are going that way anyways.
No, what about Australia? They have opened to only students.
Only students, yes.
Even Saudi, they've limited it to immediate relatives of their citizens. So we have to look at this carefully.
Isn't it too late?
It's not too late. It's not too late. It's a matter of law. The president can just sign maybe via an executive instrument that maybe from October we are restricting those coming in to be those coming for essentials. I mean, we keep updating, reviewing as we move on. If not, we might end up going back to square one and we have to lock down again. Another issue we can use this opening to do is to, in international law, there's something we call the principle of reciprocity. If we are opening to everyone, then why should Canada restrict Ghanaians who have Canadian visas? If we are allowing them to come even for non-essentials, why should they restrict Ghanaians who also have Canadian visa from traveling to Canada, for example? Why should US ask Ghanaians with J1 visa to go back to the consulate for permission before traveling when the visa itself is a permission? So we can use our approach to bargain through diplomatic means to allow Ghanaians to also travel. If not, the impression out there is that, look, Ghana has opened its airports and everyone is preparing. Those who want to travel, they are all preparing. Meanwhile, the laws in other countries may not be favorable to Ghanaians, although we have allowed everyone who have a Ghanaian visa and those who are qualified under visa on arrival to come to the shores of Ghana.
So if I get the point you're making, whilst we are opening for others to come in, we should be able to have diplomatic arrangements that allow our travelers to also go to certain countries if they want to. Very interesting one there.
And it will help boost our foreign exchange. Yes. So if you are talking about tourism for people coming, we should also look at Ghanaians being able to also move out.
Okay. But some of you are asking about the visa categorization, but I'm not sure that,
Let me take them through briefly.
This person wants to know what the A1, J1 visa and all the others you're talking about. So let's see if we can go through the general visa categorization.
Okay, thank you. So the A1, A2 is for government officials. The B1, B2 is for, let's say, the B1 is for conference. B2 is for tourism, and then, let's say, medicals. Then the F1 is for students, the full-time students. Then the J1 is also kind of student internship. It's like more or less work. Although I admit that the F1, we can, in the past, prior to COVID, you're allowed to work 20 hours per week on campus per the F1 visa. Then we also have the K visa, where if you are going to join your fiancé or to start the marriage process, you go by the K visa. So essentially, these are the categories. This is for the
U.S., right?
That's for the U.S., yes.
Okay, so we'll come back and I'll take some of your comments. For those of you welcoming me back to the show, thank you very much for your nice words. But Minister for Information, Kojo Nkrumah, has hinted that land and sea borders could only reopen after they met satisfactory risk assessment modules. Listen to him.
What the president does is to receive advice and examine the advice on our ability to mitigate the risk for everything we do. In the case of the international airport, the advice and the processes as have been outlined by the Ghana Health Service, Ghana Civil Aviation, or Ghana Airport Company Limited and the Aviation Ministry give him reason to believe that the risk is well mitigated and can be contained. Indeed, His Excellency the President himself did not just take their word for it, but he came here himself on a visit yesterday and was taken through the entire process. And there's that conviction that the various layers, including the fact that you do a negative PCR test before you board, provides us with some very significant comfort that the risk can be contained. Government continues to examine, for example, the testing regime in our neighboring countries and the levels of confidence we can have in those as part of measures to examine how the land borders and the sea borders can also be opened. So at this stage, because we have confidence in how the international airport, its systems, and the risk levels can be managed, that is why this has happened. When we get to a point where we are confident that for the land borders, same can happen, a decision will be made there. You are aware, for example, in the case of students going to school, because we are not convinced that pre-tertiary, the kind of mechanisms that are being put in place will be able to protect our children. The president has elected to terminate the academic year and ask that next year the curriculum be adjusted to reflect that. So every decision he makes is based on a risk assessment of how well the risk can be contained. And if he's not convinced, he won't move there yet. That will be the reason. I don't have question, no. Enya chacha na yetu. The aye biano. Yerigu nsenieni esusu.
Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah there. What do you make of the fact that land borders, land and sea borders are still closed?
Yeah, I think that it's a step in its right direction because of the monitoring. Before the land and sea borders will be open, then we should be sure that we have the machines there as well. Even if we cannot do the PCR test, at least the antigen test, we should be able to do it at the various point of entry.
Okay, let's talk before we go. We'll wrap up this conversation. Before we go, let's talk briefly about the this standing feud between Nigerian and Ghanaian traders, which is gradually escalating. Over the last week, we saw a statement from the Nigerian Foreign Affairs Information Minister, and his counterpart here in Ghana, Kojo Nkrumah, has a list-by-list response. What information are you picking up within those circles?
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I have seen the letter from the Honorable Lai Mohammed, the Information Minister for Nigeria. I mean, he is very clear that he has described what is happening as an harassment to the people of Nigeria. You see, this problem is a matter of institutional failure in Ghana. How do Nigerians get their registration certificates in the first place? How do Nigerians end up renting shops? Most of the buildings that they have their shops in are not theirs. They rent it from Ghanaians. Now, some of them even employ some Ghanaians as well. We work with them for some time. Then we now come back and say they don't have the appropriate documents. Why didn't we check their resident permits in the first place before even allowing them to register? Some of them even have TIN numbers in this country. So we need to balance the two. We need to balance the two. If you go to them for revenue, some of the assemblies go to them, levy them, take some taxes and stuff. If you go to them for money, you give them receipts, they have it. On what basis will you go back to them and say, look, you should evict your shop? We need to balance the two. You see, the political will should be there. At the beginning of the year, Nigeria took a very bold step. And they said because they want to increase rice production in their country, they closed their border. I don't know whether you remember. Nigeria closed its borders.
I was there at the Nigerian-Benin border to cover what the situation there.
So if it is the case that Ghana is saying that, look, Ghana is a sovereign state, yes, I admit that we are part of, we are signatories to some ECOWAS protocols. But let's have the political way and say that, look, this is how far we can go with Nigerians. Foreigners, this is how far we can go with you. You cannot register companies for retail business, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. We make it clear and communicate that to the Nigerian government. Look, they are raising very legitimate issues. For example, they talk about the leasehold agreement that we said had expired. And on the basis of that, some Ghanaians went and demolished their property in Ghana. They referred us to the Ghanaian embassy in Nigeria, and that our leasehold agreement with them had also expired, but they never attacked ours. If that is the case, then it's quite unfortunate, because if we know that their leasehold agreement has expired, we ought to have informed them for them to take necessary steps to either renew it or relocate, but not to go with force to demolish that building. If they also decide to retaliate, you know how this will become. But I'm happy that tension has come down, and people are no longer being aggressive. And I'm happy that our information minister also took time to also respond to the information minister of Nigeria on matter of substance, and government through diplomatic means to come in so that all this problem will be thing of the past. Thank you.
Wanda, thank you so much. Wanda Victor Kutor is an immigration analyst. He's an immigration watcher. So he watches, the space. He's been talking to us about what you ought to know if you want to travel. We're hoping to have the immigration service, the Ghana Immigration Service, join us with some clarifications on what you can do as a Ghanaian if you want to travel out, whether you want to travel in. We've not been successful this afternoon with that, but certainly we'll be on their heel. Hopefully we'll get them through tomorrow. So you know what you ought to do. But there's been some very good information. At least we've given you an idea of the countries that are open. We've given you an idea also of what you can do, what you ought to do, the cost that will be borne by you if you intend to travel to Ghana, and all of that. We'll keep the conversation going. Wanda, thank you once again. Well, some of you are texting, but you're mostly talking about the school reopening. I will see if I could take a couple because we've moved on from that particular story. But this one says, with regards to the reopening of schools, parents should, as a matter of fact, understand that not all school-going children can observe the protocols outlined. So no need to be in a hurry to allow their wars to bring home the virus. I get you. Thank you very much for sending in that message as well. This one says, I want to know if the tertiary schools will also return to school anytime soon or next year, January. I'm not sure I have that answered for you right now. But as we go along, we certainly know. Finally, this one says, I have questions about passengers arriving at KOTOKA Airport. I'd like to know if children under the age of 5 need to have COVID test. I think that has been clearly stated, that people who are arriving in the country, children beneath the age of 5, will not need to go through a COVID test. Now, moving on from this story, we go to a rather sad story. 4 women accused of witchcraft have sustained life-threatening injuries after they were attacked by a group of men in the Savannah region. The incident happened at the Sumpini, a community in the West Gonja district, shortly after the Bugum Fire Festival during the weekend. Savannah region correspondent Isaac Nonya has the rest of the story. You may find portions of this story disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
The victims sustained serious injuries on their heads, arms, legs, and faces. 3 of them are receiving treatment at the West Gonja District Hospital in Damongo, and the other is at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. Maria Ibrahim is one of the victims at the West Gonja District Hospital. Of the 4, she has the worst injuries. She lost some of her fingers. She narrated her ordeal to health workers.
And I joined a minimum quality fee. Now, I will say, I didn't a channel. I brand 1 year, 1 that, minimum. Number 10 by almost a baby. No more discipline, no more to drama. No more bumisa, no more drama, no more dimity.
Municipal Chief Executive for West Gonja, Said Muhazu, has described the act as barbaric and unfortunate. He has promised to bring all the perpetrators to book.
In fact, it was very, very, very unfortunate, very sad news last night at about 9 p.m. when the video was sent to me. And they indicated that it was one of my communities here in the West Gonja municipality, that is Sumpini. I became so sad that less than a month we are battling with a similar situation that has occurred again in West Gonja municipality. So quickly, I put my machinery in place. I send the videos to all the security agencies that matter in this situation and instructed that I want by the close of today, I need results on what we have to do and what we have done so far.
At the gender level, Madam Alijata Haruna of the West Gonja Municipal Gender Desk says her outfit is seriously putting measures in place to address the root cause of attacks on women in the region, adding that such attacks are becoming too much.
We are not going to sit over this issue. We will take it and find the root cause and make sure that we get the perpetrators. Because this issue is becoming unbecoming for Savannah region. It's too much for Savannah region. You see, always alleged witchcraft cases, always alleged cases, which is not the best for the district. And we'll make sure that after that, more education and sensitization will have to go down to the communities on this issue. We are trying to look for the perpetrators and we'll make sure that the law takes its course. We are not going to leave it as where it is.
Meanwhile, the number of suspects in police custody has increased from 4 to 5, and the acting public relations officer of the Savannah Regional Police Command, Sergeant Ajikumu Wusu, who confirmed their arrest, says all those in custody, together with their counterparts who are on the run, actually took part in torturing the victims.
5 people so far, and this morning we embarked on arresting the perpetrators. We've arrested the Dagomba chief of Sumpini, and he is a linguist, and 2 other accomplices for being part of those who perpetrated the crime. They actually took part.
They took part?
Yes.
The chief is linguist?
And the other suspects we are looking for, they all took part.
JoyNews is learning that one of the victims, Maria Ibrahim, was chased with machetes and other sharp weapons from her matrimonial home. Fearing for her life, she ran from house to house until she ended in a fellow woman's room, where she was attacked together with her host for attempting to intervene, leaving bloodstains on the walls. Maria's younger brother, Karim, rushed to Sampinin from Salaga in tears upon hearing of his sister's plight. He says his sister is innocent and does not deserve such treatment.
When I heard the issue, I said that I have to calm myself. So they told me that she was attacked in the house, butchered, slashed with cutlasses, and I called colleagues from Damangu, who sent a delegation from Busunu to the community Sumpini here, then picked her to the hospital and subsequently to Damangu. So we are pleading with the authorities to come out as early as possible to arrest these perpetrators. I heard or I have learned the parents of these suspects have been arrested. But that is not an issue. We needed these people themselves to be arrested, not their parents. In our family, we have never had such situations.
This attack comes less than a month after a 90-year-old woman was attacked for the same reasons. Ikuya Dente was not lucky. She died, sparking nationwide anger. Here is a physician assistant at the West Gonja District Hospital, Thomas Asaku, who attended to Maria Ibrahim when she was attacked.
Currently, she's doing very well.
Okay.
She responded very well to treatment. The wounds on her head were very deep, and luckily for us, the skull wasn't on examination. We realized the skull wasn't involved, or was only cut on the head, so we had that sweetness. So she also found some cuts on her right arm, the head. But thank God, they were very deep, but they weren't deep enough to cause severe damage, and those things were handled. According to her, she says she knows them, she knows those young guys, but she didn't mention them to us yesterday.
The country director of Amnesty International has condemned the act and called on government to act swiftly and protect vulnerable women.
For me, what I make of this case is a clear evidence, again, another evidence to our government, whatever government, that when these things happen, you need action, because these are symptoms of a bigger problem, that if we don't do something that is big, that sends a warning to everybody, it will continue happening.
This latest incident has left many wondering whether there's an end in sight to violence against women accused of witchcraft. Isaac Nonjes report for JoyNews.
Maxwell Akbabari reading that story for our correspondent. Now, PRO for the police in the Savannah region, Sergeant Owuswa Jakum, says the 5 persons arrested have already been arraigned. He spoke earlier on JoyNews today.
At the moment, the 5 persons who were arrested yesterday have been arraigned before Bole Magistrate Court. And police investigation team are on the ground looking for the other suspects to be arrested.
How many people, how many other suspects are there?
At the moment, we are looking for 4 other suspects to be arrested, including a lady.
Now, what started this suspicion or this accusation in the first place? We know that in the previous case of Madame Ekia Dente, who was unfortunately beaten to death, it was a fetish priestess who said she's a witch. Did something similar happen in this case?
Exactly. The lady among those we are looking for at the moment, according to our investigation, this lady was saying she was in possession of a dwarf deity or something. So she led the group to the woman's house and then accused her of being a witch. So it is similar to that of Ekia Dente's case.
Let's head to the Savannah region. Isaac Nonya is our correspondent. Let's hear what the latest is here. Isaac, what's the latest?
Yeah, the latest is that 3 victims who are on a mission at the West Gonja Hospital. I'm talking about the emergency unit due to their initial condition. According to doctors, are now being stabilized and have been transferred to the general female ward to be monitored by the doctors over there. But we are told the 4th person who's also on a mission at the Central Hospital in Tamale, Northern region, he also has been stabilized and is doing.
Isaac, thank you, by the way, for the updates. So we know that those who were at the hospital receiving treatments have been stabilized. I was trying to get information on the whereabouts of the second woman who was also attacked. 4 persons have been arrested by the Cantonment Police Command for attempting to demolish 3 bungalows belonging to the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. Hundreds of agitated workers of the state institution earlier today stormed the bungalows at Laboni here in Accra, preventing the men with excavators from carrying out what they described as illegal attempts to bring down their structures. Here are excerpts of how it all went down.
We are here this morning and we just said that they've amassed some private property. People who are seeking to take over government property have been allocated their bungalows. And they are coming to take over the bungalows whilst people are staying in the bungalows. You know, this issue is not, it has been trending for some time, not only our bungalows, but almost all our properties. Our offices at Frafraha, Airport Residential, Pokuasi, Cantonment Food Research, almost everywhere. Now he's taking over the bungalows that workers are even staying. So this morning we said we won't sit down, but to come and protect the bungalows so that private individuals cannot take over government property. So that is why we are here. But the truth is that Lands Commission has given them temporary lease. That's what we don't understand. We are on the property. They've given a temporary lease to come and like investigate to see whether they can take it, and I'll take it off finally. Of which you don't understand. No, the land is for CSR, but they have gone for some fake lease. You understand?
You think that the lease is fake?
Oh, the lease is not. It's a temporary lease. Well, it's a temporary lease. When we saw the one they attempted to come over, they are holding a temporary lease. Why should Land Commission give them a temporary lease before finally giving them? It's for them because they know there are people inside. I don't know him, but we know they have the full backings of the government. They are like quasi-government people.
These are huge allegations.
I know what I'm talking about because our whole premises they are taking over. You know Pokwasi issue? Are you aware of the Pokwasi issue? It's the government itself who is coming for the Minister of Agric, who is coming forward to say government need the property to build affordable housing. That's a typical case of government trying to take over the property. Because we are there doing research. Through the minister, we were there in the meeting. The minister himself told us, I was there, that government needed the property to build that. Because when government drives us, I see that people are sleeping in the street. So we needed that property to build affordable housing for Ghanaians. Right. Aren't we Ghanaians working on that place? Aren't we Ghanaians? Aren't we Ghanaians? Choboy, aren't we Ghanaians? So why? Why aren't there enough land around?
What's the next line of action? What are you going to do?
You know, we did demonstrations, press conferences some time to come. But I realized that is not the end. We decided to put up some actions we don't want to disclose. But it looked like the way the system is, government is not coming to our aid. No, like we said today, they've come with an excavator or a bulldozer or something. But we've stopped them because they know what they are doing is wrong. Maybe they may come under the darkness and come and do any further thing, but we won't allow. Anytime we have people staying here, so anytime they call us, we clear a mass and come, and then draw the police attention because we are protecting government property. The buildings are not for us personally, so why should we? Put our lives on the line? I will leave government work and go back to my village. Then the building will be there for government, for the next government officials to take over and work for Ghana to progress. Why must the building be given to a private property to do whatever he wants to do with? Once we are using it for research and development.
This house belongs to CSR, and I've been living here for the last 6 years. And we're here when some people came in and they said they sold the land to them.
When was that?
That was last Friday because they were working on, we had brought our workers to construct the fence wall. And I told them they should let the Lands Commission go to CSR and tell them that if they really sold the land, they should just go to the Lands Commission and just ask CSR to eject us, not them. So they started working, constructing the fence wall. Then Sunday evening, as a gentleman, we came with him. He's out there. Then they came to break the wall. They reported to the police. And this morning, I called my officers, and they came with the police.
Chief of Staff, Chief of Staff,
Let's do some sports. We'll be right back after that.
Thank you for staying with us on the Pulse. Gary Al Smith here with the sport. And Marketa Vundusuva has become the first player to win in the US Open after the embattled tournament, following the fact that top players are missing, have not been taking part, but the intrigue remains. And the players will be battling it out. We are going to look at the prize money of over $21 million in this year's tournament and some of the key things we should be looking at as well. And to help us do that is Joy Sports' Baba Tando, who is following the tournament, which just about beginning. Baba, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Gary. Thanks very much for having me.
So what have been the major talking points ahead of the start of the tournament? We know that COVID has cast a shadow over everything, but with the US Open, what is the talking point?
Well, the talking point had obviously been about the coronavirus and the fact that for the very first time in the tournament's 140-year history, it's going to be played, with no spectators, basically, and, having to follow safety protocols. I mean, whoever thought that players would have to march onto the various courts wearing nose masks? They wouldn't have ball boys holding onto their towels anymore. They have to do things all by themselves. So the coronavirus pandemic has actually brought a lot of differences, to this year's tournament. And at a point, it even seemed improbable. It even looked as if it wasn't going to happen. And it actually did happen at the last minute. And even that, when the green light was given, it didn't come easy because as of the last 24 hours, I'm sure you've heard that one person had tested positive for the virus and has been forced to pull out of the competition. And, some investigation had led to the fact that it's Frenchman Benoit Paire who's been forced to withdraw from the tournament. And it wouldn't end just there. The USDA's health officials are actually going to begin contact tracing to see whoever had come into contact with Benoit Paire. Benoit Paire is asymptomatic, but he definitely had come into contact with certain people, and so they would see if he did come in contact with certain players who would be asked to, to self-isolate for a period of 10 days at least. He himself is self-isolating for 10 days. So, I mean, that's been the major talking point, over the last 24 hours, apart from the fact that the competition is underway.
Yes, I was going to that. So now it's begun. What should we look out for? Definitely, there are players still in there. We know that Serena is still chasing that elusive number 24 since she got the last one in 2017.
Yes, I mean, if you watch Serena in the Western and Southern Open, which ended last Saturday, you could tell that it wasn't too easy for her. She's been quite rusty. I mean, it's with all the players. Angelique Kerber, German #1, is struggling to beat. She's number 17 for this number 17 seed for this tournament. She's struggling to beat Alia Tomljanovic, who is unseeded. I mean, yeah, she's packed up. She's done and dusted with the first set, which is 6-3. She won 6-4. She was supposed to have wrapped this up about 5 minutes ago. She was leading 5 games to 2. It's now 5 games to 4 against an unseeded player. So you can tell how difficult it is for these top seeds. Serena, I mean, we are hoping for the best for her, but it looks pretty much difficult for her. It might just be the dawn of a new era for some of these next-gen players. So she won't be in my top 5 picks if you'd ask me. I'll be very honest. She's lost quite a bit of her form.
Yeah. So what is the draw this year then for, the US Open if players like Serena will not make it into your top 5? What else is the draw? What else should people be excited about?
Well, like I said, it probably might be the dawn of a new era for certain players. I mean, Pliskova, I know, has always been a top contender. She's there. There's Angelique Kerber, who I said was struggling against Ayla Tomljanovic. That game is currently ongoing. But if she does pull through, then it means that she's actually 40-15 as we speak in this second set. 5-4. She leads 5 games to 4. So probably if she does win this and goes through to the next round, then we probably would have to have an eye over for her. I mean, don't take anything away from the likes of Coco Gauff, of course, the American. She will try. She's not going to go so far, I am afraid, because there's still a long way for her to go. But like I'm saying, for me, the top females to look out for will be Azarenka. Azarenka is in there. Azarenka won the Cincy Open or the Western and Southern Open. I mean, she didn't play in the final game against Osaka because Osaka had to pull out due to injury. But I mean, she's picking up her form. There's Garbiñe Muguruza in there somewhere. I've already mentioned Karolina Pliskova. There's Angelique Kerber. All of these are top contenders.
Right.
These are some of the ladies we should be looking out for.
Lovely. So over the course of the tournament, we'll definitely be doing more in terms of previewing the games and looking at the high points that come up in the tournament. Baba Tando, thank you very much for your time. She's joining us from the UK on that preview. We'll be here tonight with Prime, where we have more updates on what's trending from Ghana. Tomorrow is the GFA Congress. KOTOKA is also 85, plus whatever else that comes up between now and then. I'm Gary Al Smith. That's your sport.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Now, the race to finding champions of this year's National Science and Maths Quiz begins tomorrow with a launch and balloting for the preliminary stage of the competition. 135 senior high schools across the country will battle it out for the covetous trophy and bragging right as champions of science and mathematics in Ghana. Due to COVID-19 pandemic and restrictions imposed thereof, the prelims will be held at the various regions to reduce the number of schools traveling to Accra for the remaining stages. Quiz mistress Dr. Elsie Efa Kaufman and Managing Director of Primetime Limited, Nana Ekuya and Kuma Sari, have been speaking about the exciting things to expect from this year's fiesta.
We've had the quiz mistresses distribute the load in terms of work. So each of the quiz mistresses was responsible for moderating with the subject consultants this year. So we've turned it into a modular system now. So it's not just me reading every single question. Now I don't even know what the other quiz mistresses have been doing in terms of their questions. But yes.
So you're not repeating questions? I'm looking for a pop for the students.
Well, the syllabus is always the same, isn't it? You know, the syllabus is still the same, and so it's up to the consultants to make it as interesting as possible by taking the same topic, the same concept, and certain questions around that in interesting ways every year. So that's one of the things that I do, is to check to make sure that they are not repeating things.
Oh, you don't want them to repeat?
No, I don't. So it's the same theme, you know, the consultants complain, how different can it be? It's the same topic. But I need to get them to set questions a little bit differently every time. What I think will happen this year is that the questions are a little bit more applied. Yes. From quarterfinals onwards.
Oh, no.
You see,
before they meet you.
I've given you the apple. So be ready to think on your feet.
We need something to help us cross this hurdle before we come to that stage.
No, but if you prepare for that, then you are prepared for the prelims as well. If you are prepared for quarterfinals, then you are definitely prepared for
at least I got a little apple.
Yes, applied.
Yes, applied.
So be ready to think on your feet.
Okay, so then because balloting is just tomorrow, and then after balloting, what happens immediately after?
So immediately afterwards, we start to get ready to go to the regions, because while we are doing the Greater Accra region on the 8th, the team that's going up north would be on its way to set up and start on the 10th.
That will be a lot of work for the organizers.
It is, but we are ready for it. This is what we do. So
yeah. So what's up for grabs this year?
So our trophy is back in our hands.
It didn't go with St. Augustine's.
Well, they got miniature versions of it for keeps for themselves. So the main trophy is back with us, and will be ready for the new owner for the year.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have different kinds of prizes. We have our usual prizes: 40,000 going to the school, 20,000 20,000 Ghana cedis going to the teachers, and another 20,000 Ghana cedis going to the students. And then that's for first prize. And then second prize is 30 to the school, 17,000 to the teachers, and another 17,000 Ghana cedis to the students. And so it's graduated in that way. We have consolation prizes, more or less. Our viewers can expect the usual excitement, even though this year things are going to be really, really different. They should expect our standards in terms of excellence and organization to be maintained.
Okay, great. Please, my question. Are you ready? How ready are you for the 2020?
I have to be. I have to be. So,
do you look forward to it though?
I do. I'm still enjoying it. So yes, I do look forward to it. Yes.
Well, don't we all look forward to it? The broadcast of the 2020 National Science and Math Quiz is brought to you by DBS Roofing Papa Fie, Bright SHS, Bright Senior High School Kokran Tumi, building dreams and shaping the future. Well, since Ghana recorded its first 2 cases of COVID-19 in March, health workers have been at the forefront of the battle, risking their lives to provide care to infected persons. As part of efforts to ensure the safety of health workers, disinfectant company GoodT Africa has donated personal protective equipment worth 12,000 cedis to health workers at the 37 military hospital. Here in Accra, urging corporate bodies to emulate the gesture, marketing manager Philip Biner said government cannot win the fight against the pandemic alone.
Of government's effort to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, GoodT Africa has also actually come on board to help in that same regard. We have a few of these infectious centers dotted around the country, and 37 military hospital happens to have one of them. So looking at the work that they have done, and for the fact that they are also at the forefront fighting against this pandemic, we as a company, we have come to actually make a donation in order to help them fight against the pandemic. The products we have actually donated cost about 12,000 Ghana cedis, and we hope it's going to go a long way in helping against these viruses. Our aim is not to actually end here, but we have a partnership with the hospital, which we intend to, from time to time, come and make donations such as this one to help against the fight of this COVID-19. We are in